Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. The story of human beings that will never cease to be interesting to me. There was a video I watched this morning, and I don't know the story of the young lady that I'm going to tell you about, but she played violin beautifully, and she only had a left arm. And I don't mean her right arm was just part of a right arm. That in itself would be an amazing thing. She had nothing. She had a contraption attached to her shoulder that enabled her to move the bow on the violin. And so with her left hand, I hope I'm saying the correct hands, but with her left hand, she was able to, do what a left hand does on a violin with the strings, right?
Yes.
And the contraption where the right hand normally would be was being moved by her moving her shoulder. There was no electronics involved. It was her. She had learned how to move her shoulder so that this contraption could work the bow. It was absolutely unbelievable. Our next guest may have both of her arms, as far as I know, but she has gone through her own challenges, and her ability to conquer those things that were challenges in her way will make all of us say, if she can do that, then I can sweep the floor, or whatever it is that your task is at hand. Barbara Hong has written a book called Failing Up. It is her odyssey of flunking, determination, and hope. It's her memoir. Can I just read a few of her credentials here? She's a professor and the special education program coordinator at Brigham Young University in Hawaii. She's a survivor of child abuse. She toiled in a sweatshop home at the age of 6. Can you imagine at 6 when you're just starting to develop? You just started to develop who you will become as an adult. She was appointed by the U.S. Department Bureau of International and Information Programs as a speaker, socialist, and an expert on disability. She's the founder of PACE, which is Parents as Advocates for Change in Education, and she's certified as a special educator. If I read the whole thing, we wouldn't have any more time for Barbara. Barbara Hong, this is an honor to have you on our show. You are an inspiration without even saying one word to you. But everything I've read so far, I'm already inspired by you. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning.
Thank you for being on the show with us.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you in Hawaii right now?
Yes, woke up very early for this.
This is the only state that I can't rub it in. I like rubbing it into Pennsylvania. We're in Florida.
It's actually quite cold this few days here.
Is it really? How cold? What do you mean? What temperature?
Oh, like to me, a 70 is cold.
Oh my gosh, that's so hard to deal with. Did you grow up in Hawaii?
No.
Where'd you grow up?
In Singapore. I grew up my whole life in Singapore until I was about 23 years old. Before I came to America, and Hawaii was the first place I came to.
Oh my gosh! Did you know English when you arrived?
Yes, English is our first official language in Singapore.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Yeah, a lot of people think Singapore is part of China, but we do speak many languages.
Oh, okay.
But you had, even from the first time you were born, there were restrictions on the number of children that a family could have, and you were from a family of 4 children.
Correct. So that was back in 1965 when Singapore just separated from Malaysia. And, it's called stop at 2. So you're not supposed to have more than 2 children or you will be penalized. If you have 3, the government will forgive you. But if you have 4, you will have to be fined $1,000. And that was a lot of money.
Wow.
So that's almost the start of my childhood when, I couldn't get into typical schools at first grade, and my mom told me that, should have gotten rid of you. And
oh my God!
Actually, she later told me that she did twice when she was 6 months pregnant with me, that she tried to abort me twice, but it wasn't successful.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, you're a blessing to us now.
Thank you.
So, we have every once in a while I'll bring up this silly idea that I've had. In children's stories, there are always like magic words, and then people say there's no such thing as magic words. But I think maybe there are, and those magic words happen to us when we're children. If you have an adult, a parent, a teacher, somebody like that who says you're worthless, you're never going to be anything, those magic words can curse you for the rest of your life. And the exact opposite is true. If you have a parent says you are so smart, you're going to go on to do great things, that can also work as magic.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's almost scary, and especially coming from your own mother.
Right.
So that's what my mom kept reminding me.
Okay, but somehow
you don't really have a, yeah.
But somehow you broke the spell because your mom called you a cabbage head?
Yeah. I don't know if you understand the analogy, but it's a dialect word that we use in Singapore. A cabbage looks like a brain. So it's basically empty. It doesn't have much nutrient, but it's a vegetable. So it just sits there.
Okay.
So that's what it is. It's empty.
So now it sounds worse than what I really thought.
In fact, when I tried to study, my mom would say, well, don't study too much because remember, I already destroyed your brain with the back alley medication and all this thing that I took because she can't afford to go to the doctor. So she just take whatever people ask her to take, acidic thing and things like that to destroy the fetus.
Wow. Tell me about your father.
Well, my father is an alcoholic as far as every day I can remember. So, he's hardly home, or if he's home, he's drunk. So we don't really have, a conversation with him because he's always drunk. And once a wife is sober, I don't even know if somebody's alcoholic, if they're ever sober. So that's always been hard to keep a job. So that's why my mom took on clothing to snip. So every time you see, clothing in the store that are nice and neatly cut, because we snip all the thread from the buttons and the seams and the hemming lines. So there are no lingering threads, and they look nice. So we cut that for every dozen we cut, we get 5 cents.
Oh.
So, yeah.
You were keeping a journal at that time, and you were writing to God.
Yeah. So I thought, wow, this is a way I learned that, you could actually talk to somebody, by writing your feelings down. So I kept a journal since I was 12 years old, and that's the birth of this memoir.
Really?
Putting the stories together, how I felt at that time.
Maybe it worked. Maybe God heard you, and maybe I just looked at your picture. You're so beautiful, and I'm always reluctant because I always think that it's not a good thing to say. But I know that you're beautiful on the inside, and I know that you're amazingly brilliant too. So how did you? Or when did you? Maybe the when is what I want to know. When did you decide that those things you were taught to believe about yourself were wrong? When did you decide that?
I don't know if you wait for the time, because my whole life is like, other than rejected by my mom, my siblings, they never finished 10th grade. So everything is just lingering along for me to wait till I fail more. I didn't read till I was 4th grade, 6th grade, I barely make it. I was to drop out at 6th grade. So it just goes on. And finally at 10th grade, which is your equivalent of 12th grade, I flunked a very major exam. It's the Cambridge exam. Actually, I don't know if I failed. I actually didn't even show up for the exam.
Oh, really?
So that's how, it's like, why bother to try? And I was so embarrassed because everybody wears a uniform. If you fail, that means you got to, everybody had moved on to another new uniform. But if I were to repeat, I would have to wear the same uniform. And it was the most humiliating thing I've ever experienced in my life.
So that was part of the motivation, right?
No, the humiliation was terrible enough, but I don't know what else is ahead. So I had this teacher who taught So just imagine this whole life, get feeling and everything. So this is a class with 30 repeaters, and nobody wants to take the class. So the vice principal had no choice but to say, fine, I would teach the class. And between his administrative duties, he came in and teach, and of all subjects, it was math. And I was like, oh, great, we don't like math. Please don't think that all Asians like math. And so, but it's just the way he teaches. He taught me. He didn't just teach the curriculum. He taught me. And that was the first time I understood math. And because I started to embrace learning, it just had a ripple effect on everything else. Hey, I can do this. I actually can do this. He cared enough to teach a bunch of repeaters,
That is awesome.
And I got an A in math,
And you just told us about an awesome teacher. I mean, somebody who is truly gifted at teaching is just as important in our world as somebody who's as gifted at using the information that is taught.
Yeah. So like you say, the magical words, everybody can call you this or that, positive or negative. The impact of a teacher is so transformational and powerful, which is why I became a teacher.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I can see why. I can see that now. So I was just looking at some of the reviews on Amazon. You have a lot of them, and you have a 5-star rating right now.
Thank you.
You have such great things people are saying, and some of the things are about the teachers that you've had and the teacher that you've become. So is this book, in your mind, in addition to just telling your story, have you had feedback from people who've read the book who are where you were, who need to be where you are and want to be where you are?
In fact, it's interesting that, people write a memoir because they think they have a unique story to share. But mine's the opposite. I find that, my research in self-determination and grit and all this, people, is very theoretical. I thought, why don't I write a personal story? This is my story about all these theories. That every parent wants their kid to be self-motivated. Every teacher wants them to be self-determined, and every employee wants. So this is my story. Mm-hmm. And when I wrote it, I have people, which I wasn't expecting, telling me that it is such a relatable story. It doesn't matter whether I came from Singapore. I am not that crazy rich Asian. I am the opposite.
I haven't seen that movie yet. Everybody says it's a good movie. Is it a good movie?
Well, it depends, right? It depends. The stereotype of an Asian, Singapore, top in math and science, and I am not any of that. Let's say, my mom is illiterate, as in literally she cannot write her name. We'll drop out. So all of this is not what this movie portrays, but you can easily envision, well, all Asians, must be great. So anyway, people telling me that I have people say, wow, it feels like I need to start writing a journal. At 66-year-old, another woman said, you know what, it's not too late for me to go to school. And I have parents saying, I need to get this book for my teenager. I have a 5th grader said, I was reading a book and I finished in 48 hours. And the most interesting of all was a girl in Kyrgyzstan, Erbil, wrote to me and said that this book related to her so much because of the struggles and the war-torn zone she's in, which I didn't expect that.
Right.
Well, you are truly an inspiration to others, and you had a teacher that was an inspiration to you and gave you all the courage. So you're giving courage to others to find their own path and believe in themselves.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. Let's say we all think that you got to go to college, you got to be in Ivy League school, you got to do all this, and sometimes in life we don't know what is out there. But what is important is that you keep on helping the person become more self-determined, self-aware. It's okay to fall if you're willing to pick yourself up. It's learn the attributes of persistence and stamina is more important than getting all these degrees.
Barbara Hung is our guest, and her book is called Failing Up, and she sent us a copy of the book, and I usually don't mention this until the end of the interview, but I wanted to mention that you signed it, so whoever gets this book is going to get a signed book. But you also wrote 2 words with a heart, and the 2 words are embrace failures. I think there's some wisdom in there that is a hard pill to swallow. Explain what you mean. Why should we love failures to the point where we embrace them?
We avoid things that we don't like, that we hate, people that we don't like, and failure being one of them, because we think it's a reflection of who we are. We're not good enough. But what we don't understand is what is behind the curtain. So if you fail and you fall and you cry, that's typically what is expected. But if we teach others, and let's say this is what I learned of all the lessons, is you're willing to get up. And I often use the analogy when I came to America, your famous story, Alice in Wonderland, where she came to the crossroad and she didn't know which path to take, and she was told, well, it doesn't really matter which one if you don't know where you're going. I kind of disagree with that, because I say sometimes we really don't know which one to go. But your willingness and courage to take one of those is itself great. And then if it's not the right road, you are willing to walk back, stumble all the way, and find another one. And sometimes you have to carve your own road. And that is okay, because you develop the attributes. It's okay to fail as long as I'm feeling up. I'm going forward and falling. Even if you fall, you are still going forward, isn't it?
Sure, and I love what you just said right there, and that's the title of the book, Failing Up. As long as you're failing up, that's really outstanding. But I think part of the secret to failing up is to not accept failure as an end. As long as you know that you can keep going, right?
Yes, and that's why we often, I would have easily been written off. By 4th grade, I still can read even fluently at all, flunking math. This is a typical student. Why don't we just spend something on somebody that is more worthwhile, And along the way, I call them accidental angels, that we all can be an accidental angels. Our words are powerful. Reaching out, and one person reaching out. And along the way, I have another teacher reaching out. And all these people make a difference. I've never heard of, the school that I went to called Columbia. I've never heard of that. But it was a professor a class that I did not like to take, but keep on saying, well, the class is over. But I'm like, why is he keep on asking about my life? And he wanted to talk to me about where do you go from here. So somebody said there's a road along that road that you can go further. And so somebody kept guiding me along. So we stumble along the way. It is okay. But looking up and not looking down is what I'm trying to embrace here.
Does your life experience help you understand religious beliefs at all? Does that play a role in your life? Do you have things of that nature that made a difference for you?
Yes, definitely. So basically, we grew up Methodist, and later I became a Latter-day Saints or Mormons, and learning to set goals, family being important and all this education being important, everything that wasn't taught in my home, but again, being part of the church and learning all of this really helped me to see a different light, that the word going up also, allude to looking at God. If nobody understands you, somebody did, and you got to embrace that. If you gave up on everything, you gave up on everything.
And Barbara, I think that the fork in the road that you referenced when you were talking about the Alice in Wonderland story, I often think that also is a God moment in our lives, where we don't know which way to go, but maybe God does. Or maybe God doesn't know which one we're going to pick, but he says, well, I'll just help you whichever one you take.
Well, he sent people along the way. And I think that is the greatest thing. Yeah, we are not alone here. And in this world, when I work with so many students who are discouraged, have special needs, depressed, the parents are sad, and they kept asking for this miraculous pill, this silver bullet, and I said, you'll be surprised how ordinary things can create miracles in people's life.
Yeah, and in your case, some ordinary people. Not that there are any ordinary people, but I mean, people. We always look to celebrities or to famous author. We look. You know what we do? We look back in the past and we say, "Look at this wise person who wrote this book 100 years ago." And meanwhile, I have a wise woman on the phone right now who has a brand new book, and it's packed full of wisdom and great insight that you could use. That a young person or anybody, any age, could use.
Well, I hope to share that with people of all ages, and especially for a teacher to pick that up.
Yeah.
Your book was awarded the Kirkus Star, and only 2% of books receive this award because it does have exceptional merit, and that is pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you.
When you are teaching your students now, and like you were referring to, that sometimes you have to stress a little more to some students because they become complacent. Do you think eventually that they do get the message, and then they will in turn start helping others because they finally get it?
Yeah, you have some students that just go through the routine, and especially teaching at the university, we just want the grades. It's all about the grades, and I know that it's important. Trust me, I'm an Asian. I know how important grades are. and the thing is that I also want them to embrace more than just being a teacher of math or science or fifth grade or school, is that you become an educator. An educator is a whole being. It's not just what you be, it's whom you become. You become passionate and caring and an advocate. You are there not just, I just want to teach the best and brightest, It's that, hey, how can I reach every single one? That kid who is at the playground that is by himself, the child who struggles in reading. Is, I live with, a quote at the back of the book, and I adapted it. I found it online. And it says, don't compare your life to others. There's no comparison between the sun, the moon, and the stars. They shine when it's their time.
Oh, I love that.
And sometimes, so the quote online doesn't have the star. And I say, I think the stars are the important part. We are all the stars, and sometimes we don't see it, but it is there. And I think the teachers have great privilege in bringing that out of this child. And then it may not happen during your grade level when you have the student, but as the student goes on, they find out that, hey, you know what, I can be that star in my own little corner, And some people say, wow, you came to America at 23, you earned your PhD before 30, you must have been really smart and all this. And I say, it wasn't the 8 years that I take to go from undergrad to a PhD, but the 22 years of failing that I learned how to make it.
Wow, well said.
Oh my gosh!
All right, I want to give away the book you sent us. It's called "Failing Up." Call me right now. I'll pick one phone call at random, and it'll go to the person who I pick. I'm not picking people, by the way. I'm picking numbers. I can't see who's calling. It is written by our guest Barbara Hong. Call me 622-9622. But everybody else, you can go online and get it. I found it on Amazon, and you got so many great reports on here, great reviews. Let me see. I was just looking to see if it was available. It's a Kindle and a paperback, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, both versions. Okay. Yes.
And what time is it in Hawaii right now? What time is it?
It is about 6:30. 6:29 here.
In the evening or the morning?
In the morning.
In the morning. Okay.
In the morning.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Let me give you a book. Don't go away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Helen.
Helen. The book will be waiting for you, Helen.
All right. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Barbara, thank you for being on the air with us today, and have a great Christmas.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're
Happy
welcome.
New Year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
We'll be right back.
Friday, mostly cloudy and breezy with a gusty thunderstorm. Dry near the coast, though, high 76 to 82. Friday night, cloudy and mild with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm, low 63 to 67. Variable cloudiness on Saturday, a shower in spots, high 72 to 78. Sunday, sun and patchy clouds, high 68 to 73.
Fox News, I'm Lillian Wu. The president's one-time personal attorney making accusations against his